Hey, how you doing? Hope you're having a good one because today we've got a massive update to talk about for NHL 26. And this one is packed with fixes, new visual updates, uniforms, datings, and all those behind the scenes things that sometimes don't sound glamorous on paper, but they make a huge difference once you're actually playing. Um, I know when patches roll out, some people just skim through, others wait for YouTubers to actually break everything down, and that's exactly what I'm going to do here. So, we're going to talk about Update 1.1.2 in detail, why it matters, and what's changed across all the big modes, franchise, HUT, World of Chell, and even small art and presentation updates. And honestly, I think this patch shows that EA is listening more closely than some people might give them credit for, because some of the fixes are clearly responding to stuff that frustrated players over the past couple of weeks. First off, let's talk about when this update went live. Servers went down for about an hour on October 1st, starting at 1 in the afternoon Eastern Time. That downtime window is always the thing where you're refreshing and waiting to get back in. But the nice part is that once it was back up, you could instantly feel the difference in some of the changes. If you're a franchise player, this update was probably a blessing, gives out because one of the biggest things they fixed was a crash issue tied to players developing a quick draw X Factor. Before this patch, you could literally hop into edit lines, and your whole game would crash out if a player had unlocked that particular ability. Imagine grinding your way through multiple seasons, your prospect develops nicely, gets rewarded with quick draw, and suddenly you can't even manage your lines without fearing a crash. That kind of bug is not just annoying, it's game-breaking for franchise fans, and it's finally resolved here. And while we're on franchise, they also ironed out a soft lock issue tied to certain first grudge matches. Those special moments are supposed to be fun and add flavor to a season, not freeze up your progress, so that's a big quality of life fix too. Then you've got the issue with custom rosters not loading properly in Create Player mode. That one really frustrated roster makers who love tailoring their game to perfection. And it's been fixed now, so you can go in and mess with players without worrying that your rosters are going to disappear or glitch out. These fixes might not grab headlines, but for people who spend hours in franchise, this is a big step toward making the mode stable. Now, shifting over to HUT, or Hockey Ultimate Team, which is always one of the most active parts of any NHL game. This update cleaned up a ton of things that were making HUT feel buggy. First, there were multiple crash scenarios that are gone now, which makes the mode much smoother to play. But beyond crashes, EA tackled smaller annoyances that really messed with immersion. For example, there were issues with overall ratings and captain card displays not showing correctly in some situations. Imagine pulling a new card and not even getting the right OV information. Super frustrating, but that's cleaned up now. Filters and UI quirks were another thing. There were bugs where filters weren't working properly when you were searching through cards, which slows down lineup building and marketplace management. That's fixed too. Missing art assets have also been restored, so you won't see those weird blank card slots or placeholder graphics that sometimes pop up. And the cup chase events, those are supposed to be hype, right? But missing or wrong info was killing that vibe. This patch corrected that, so those events feel like they're supposed to again. Arena cards were also messed up in places, not displaying the way they should, and now they're fixed. Even lineups and collection displays were given some polish so they don't glitch or misrepresent the cards you own. These changes might sound minor one by one, but if you play HUT daily, you know it's death by 1,000 cuts when those issues pile up. With this update, it feels like they went down a checklist and said, okay, let's just clean up the mess and get HUT running properly. Let's talk about gameplay for a second, because there's actually one notable tweak in this update. If you've been playing Ones Eliminator, you probably noticed a weird thing where players who were idle weren't being kicked automatically. And that's super frustrating because Ones is all about pace, being quick, keeping it competitive, and then you'd have people who just go AFK and sit there. That killed the flow of games. With update 1.1.2, that's fixed, so idle players will now get removed like they should. It's one of those fixes where if you don't play Ones, you might shrug, but for the people who do, this changes the experience dramatically. No more wasting time playing against ghosts. World of Chell also got some attention, and honestly, it needed it. There was a bug where injury icons weren't displaying correctly in some situations, and now that's fixed. And I know some people might think, who cares about icons, but in modes where you're relying on quick information on screen, those indicators matter. Then there were crashes happening in EHL's 6v6 drop-in matches related to strategies. If you've ever been hyped to play with friends, only to have the game crash mid-session, you know how painful that is. That issue is resolved. They also addressed a weird bug where the pregame AI banner wouldn't display correctly, and fixed missing images in reward bags. It's all about tightening up the presentation and keeping things smooth in the community hub of the game. Now I've got to highlight the visual updates because this is the part a lot of people love, even if it doesn't get much attention. Update 1.1.2 brought in a big wave of uniform and arena changes. Stadium scoreboard updates for the Minnesota Wild and the Philadelphia Flyers were included, and that kind of presentation detail just adds to the authenticity. Center ice visuals were updated for multiple teams, including Anaheim, Calgary, Minnesota, and Philly. So if you're someone who notices those little details when you drop the puck, you're going to see fresh, accurate designs. Uniforms were probably the biggest chunk of this patch. We're talking updates across the NHL, the ECHL, CHL, Liga, SHL, and even Switzerland's National Liga. Notable NHL examples include the Carolina Hurricanes away set, the Chicago Blackhawks Centennial throwback, the Ottawa Senators third, and the Seattle Kraken third. Seeing those get polished means if you're rocking alternates or special jerseys, they're going to look the way they should. On top of that, there were a couple of specific art bug fixes, like correcting the Boston Bruins logo on a snapback brim, and a quirky little thing where the number 8 on some uniforms had a missing pixel. That stuff is tiny, but when you add it all up, it makes the game feel cleaner and more professional. What I really like about this patch is that it isn't just surface level. It's not only about fixing the flashy stuff that people will notice instantly, it's also about stabilizing the game in areas where frustration builds over time. Like, yes, the uniforms look great, but eliminating those franchise crashes or fixing HUT filters is just as important because it means less time wasted and more time actually enjoying hockey. It feels like EA is trying to balance presentation updates with core stability. And honestly, I'd rather see patches like this come out regularly than wait months for a giant overhaul. This kind of steady maintenance shows they're paying attention. Now, of course, whenever a patch like this lands, players start testing everything to see if old glitches are really gone. That's what I've been seeing too. People checking franchise after quick draw developments, people hopping into Ones Eliminator to see if idle players really get kicked. The early impressions are that the fixes are legit, and the uniform updates are already making their way around social media with screenshots of those new third jerseys. You know how the community loves showing off fresh looks, so expect your timeline to be filled with those. There's also the bigger picture here. NHL 26 hasn't been out that long, and we're already seeing a fairly large update like this one. That suggests EA is trying to set the tone early that they'll be patching frequently. For years, one of the biggest criticisms of the NHL series was that patches felt too slow or too small. But when you see a 1.1.2 patch this detailed, it feels like they're stepping up. That doesn't mean everything is perfect. There are still things people want fixed, like deeper AI improvements, better balance in certain abilities, or bigger changes to HUD's economy. But for now, this is a good sign. I think what's really going to matter long-term is how consistent the support is. If we're still getting patches this size 3 or 4 months from now, people are going to trust EA more. If it fizzles out after launch hype, the skepticism will come back. But for now, NHL 26 Update 1.1.2 is a strong patch that touches every major mode in the game, balances fixes with presentation upgrades, and solves a bunch of frustrating bugs that were dragging down the experience. And honestly, after spending time with it, you really notice the smoother flow. Franchise is less stressful because you don't fear a crash when managing lines. HUT feels cleaner without UI hiccups. Ones Eliminator is actually fun again without idle trolls. And those uniform changes, those just make it feel like you're watching a real broadcast, especially when you fire up a game with one of those refreshed alternates.